righty, thank you for being here. We're going to call the meeting to order. Greg, I'm on the right page today. All right, perfect.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Any agenda modifications?
No, ma'am. Roll call.
Yes, ma'am. All righty. Commissioner Lori Cox. Commissioner Goldwire.
Present.
Commissioner Messersmith.
Present.
Commissioner Neesmith. Here. Commissioner Minor.
Present.
Commissioner Matlow.
Here.
Commissioner Richardson. Commissioner Williams Cox.
Here.
Did I miss anyone?
Did you hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
I was gonna say, yeah, we heard.
Thank you, my
You
friend.
know how to come into a room.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Number 2, agenda modification.
No, ma'am.
Number 3, public comments. Consent agenda.
Just one quick note on the Unified Planning Work Program. What you see in there right now is all a draft final. We'll finalize some of the numbers with DOT before it's completely done, but it won't shift very much. We'll bring that back to you as an informational item.
Madam Chair, I would move consent with consideration of the Executive Director's comments.
I'd second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. No consent items pulled for discussion. Roll call vote agenda items, none? Goodness gracious. CRTPA action number 7, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Burke.
Okay.
Good afternoon, members. As you may recall, at your January retreat, we kicked off this school safety study, which is a focused effort in the CRTPA region. Subsequent to January, a lot has been going on with this project. It's being divided in 2 phases, Phase 1 and Phase 2, and we just initiated Phase 2. And that said, I'm going to turn this over to Lindsay Slaughterback with KHA.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Lindsay Slaughterback with Kimley Horn. So we've been working on the Take the Safe Route project here. So we're just going to give an update. We've done some different analyses that we'll go over, and then the site visits, and then we'd love to hear any feedback that you have. So I think you're all aware of what this is. We're pretty much going to schools that came out of our prioritization and then kind of looking around to see if they have safe routes to walk and to bike to school. So we've done that in the 4-county region. I believe we ended up with 8 in Leon County and then 1 in Wakulla and 1 in Gadsden. And the idea is that this will help the communities apply for funds and then outside of just safe routes to school, but also with safe routes to school. So we have done this project in 2 phases. So I think as of yesterday at like 5 p.m., we can say Phase 1 is a check and a little bit of Phase 2 is pretty good. So Phase 1, we did a lot of stakeholder meetings, data collection. We did the prioritization and then identified more than 10 schools, just slightly, for further evaluation. And then Phase 2 includes those surveys as well as the site visits, which we just did. And then that will all be wrapped into a final report. Okay, so this is the same thing, but in a timeline schedule kind of graphic. And so we are right now, it's a spring. It feels like summer, so we did our site visits, just finished yesterday, and then we'll move into the summer where we're going to put that all into a report and then come back to you guys in the fall with more information, and then to get your blessing on the final plan in November. So as I noted, a lot of things have been completed. We did a prioritization. We did an additional desktop analysis, which I'll go over, and then we did 12 site visits in the last couple of days. So a lot going on, but things are moving. So I think the last time I was here, I talked about this GIS-based prioritization. So we looked at a lot of different data points related to schools, socioeconomic data, transportation, and that kind of stuff. So we put that all into GIS, which is there in the graphic there, you can see. And then we assign different points to give it a score. And so if you all want to see this, it's in the packet for the agenda. But the highest score could be 20, And then the lowest score obviously could be 0, which luckily we didn't have any zeros in the whole list of schools in the region. And so here we have those lists by county. This was very data-driven, as I said. So a lot of crash data went into it, a lot of stuff that's already mapped. Not really that human component, the feedback from stakeholders. This is just kind of where the numbers brought us. So with that in mind, we talked with the CRTPA staff and decided to move into a desktop review, which is basically just looking at residential density, what is already out there. Are there sidewalks? Are there bike lanes? Are there multi-use paths? Are there any gaps in the sidewalks that would prevent students from getting safely to and from school? And then signage and street lighting, of course. So with that, we have a full memo, which I believe was made available to you, and if not, let us know, we'll send that. But these were the final 12 schools that we came up with. And you'll see Raw and Rudiger are in green and highlighted. In this scenario, we just wanted to go to both schools because they're co-located and kids are kind of walking in all directions all around this whole area. So this is kind of what we went off of for our site visits, which began last Thursday and ended yesterday. So we have been kind of targeting these site visits for a while now, and this is just to go out and look at the infrastructure, the student movement patterns, and then the signing and the pavement markings. We did not do any formal counts as of yesterday, and we had a really great time out there. It was quite a push. Some schools we did in the morning, some in the afternoon, but we had a lot of really good resources out there, the school crossing guards especially. So with that, I can show, did I exit it? All right, thank you for your patience. Okay, so we have a few pictures here. So we have hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and we have not had a lot of time to go through them all yet and then kind of compile all of our information. We had some formal checklists, like looking at the bus stops, the crosswalks, the bus lane, parent pickup departure areas. So we have all of that data. We're kind of getting through it, starting to map out some memos and getting ready for the final report. But what I can tell you from our team just being out there the last couple of days is that there's a huge opportunity for improved signage and pavement markings for the crosswalks. In a lot of scenarios, you'll just have a step down, no ADA, or there's none of the yellow tactile strips to stop students from going. And we heard from some of the crossing guards that's a big deal. There's also major safety concerns at some of the ones on main arterials. And so, not to name names, but RAW and NIMS. And even with those improved crosswalks, and I know Commissioner Richardson is looking at me on this one.
We were going to have you go back to the slide that has the 20 beside NIMS.
Yeah, I could go back, yes. But NIMS was the one that really stood out to us, just watching the students cross and people continue to drive through the crosswalks. And I'm sure you're all aware of this, but state law is that if there's a pedestrian in that crosswalk, you need to stay out of the crosswalk with your vehicle. So that was pretty eye-opening. And then additionally, the school crossing guards, they're the real heroes here. Honestly, we spoke to so many of them. They're fantastic. They're out there doing their job every day. You can see in the pictures. There's a woman kind of just out on THARP and MLK. And then they just had so much information to share and really great recommendations. So with that information, we're going to move into developing the final technical report. And so that will have that final list, some identification of projects and small things that can be done, quick build stuff. And we'll have the planning level cost estimates. And then we will also do a survey and student travel tally in the next year. So we don't feel like there's going to be a big discrepancy between who's walking and biking right now and who's going to be doing it at the beginning of next year. So I think we'll probably do this in September and then meet with the school administration just to get their feedback, get the real numbers. We didn't really do the pedestrian counts like I mentioned. So this will be very helpful for kind of tying the technical transportation infrastructure piece to the human component of safety. And with that, I'll take any questions or comments, and then of course CRTPA can answer.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two things. One, I drove, it's interesting that NIMS comes up because I drove through that school zone this morning, and an interesting observation. Before the crosswalk, the kids were going down to the traffic light and crossing. the crossing guard was sitting in his truck, and now they have a staff member at the crosswalk leading the kids across the crosswalk, Madam Chair. And I guess they don't feel comfortable with the kids because people still come through that crosswalk even when the kids push the button and it's flashing. Just an interesting observation there that now they have a staff member leading the kids across. But the other question that I had, I noticed that the schools that are the priority schools are the older schools in the district. Are the more recently built schools, have those been built with this whole issue of safe routes in mind, do you know, or think that's why they're not on the priority list?
Yeah, so the prioritization was kind of based on like crash data as well as like socioeconomic data, which is those USDOT layers, areas of persistent poverty and disadvantaged communities. So that's why that first list kind of looked how it looked.
Okay.
And then we took stakeholder feedback and then like the location of facilities to determine. So it's quite possible that the schools that have the facilities already were not coming to the top because the newer schools are getting the right kind of thing. And we do know Fairview Elementary is on the list here, and we did a site visit there. But they have a past project on Zillow that was completed, and they do have everything that we were kind of looking for with our checklist. So not a new school, but definitely a kind of, not redesigned, but resurfaced and kind of like improved roadway out front.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I advocated for when I came to the commission, because Sila used to be, it had a ditch on the side of the road and no railing. And of course, that was very, very concerning. But they've done a lot of work to Scylla, Zyla.
Yeah, I was like,
now.
which one is it?
Yeah, yeah. And it's a big difference along that route. In terms of student safety, getting to school, they put in sidewalks, they crossing, crosswalks, full works. Much better over there.
Yeah, it looks great
Yeah.
from our checklist, and also the school crossing guard expressed satisfaction with the way it's set up, and that it, you know, now the school crossing guard's only issue is kind of like when they're letting students out to walk versus get in the car kind of thing, that's a great improvement.
Madam Chair, I noticed that Commissioner Neesmith is frowning. And I noticed because Shanks Middle School is at the bottom of the list. And I know that because Shanks used to be a high school. That was where I graduated high school. It's now middle school. And it is in town as opposed to Gadsden County High School, which is outside of the city limits and across major highways. And I'm assuming that is why they are not there, because there's probably not a lot of foot traffic crossing to get to Gadsden County High School. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And you can kind of see in the scoring, the first round of scoring for Gadsden County, Shanks just blew it away in terms of safety concerns, 10 points ahead of Monroe Elementary School. So that's kind of how we landed on Shanks. And we know that there are some questions about why we wouldn't have more schools in those outer counties, but it's basically that they have very efficient bus systems, which we saw at both of these for schools. And then a lot of them are in rural counties where there's not a lot of people walking because the residential areas are very far away.
Madam Chair, if I could, that list, Commissioner, is not actually a prioritized list. They're just listed.
Okay.
But if it was a priority, my alma mater, Amos Godby High School Cougar for Life, was at the top on purpose.
Oh, okay. All right. I got you.
Yeah, okay.
I feel you. I feel you. But I saw that look on his face, so I was trying to interpret it. Okay. Yeah.
Just a comment. So this is finally something that we do in here, speaking more of my language. So you know that Safe Routes to School has been around for a while, is why some of those older schools have already been addressed.
Okay.
So that's part of it. But I even got a call from our safety and security guy yesterday. He was like, Laurie, do you know this Lindsay Slaughterback? She's coming to Rudiger to check on some stuff. And I'm like, I think she's legit. So I want you to know our school safety and
Think being the
security
operative word there.
is right on top of that. So I'm glad y'all are out there. Seriously, Rudiger is my alma mater, and just to give a shout out. But what y'all do, thank you for helping make our get to school safely. And we always want to promote safe walking and riding to school. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Cox, for providing me an opportunity not to address certain issues, and thank you, Commissioners. Thank you very much for this insightful presentation, and thank you, Greg, because now I know that the schools are not positioned there in any particular manner. So I really appreciate that. Given that the Gaston County School District is in the process of building the new school, the new K-8 school where James A. Shanks is located, has any of this information been shared with the superintendent or the board so that as they move forward with that project in that area, they would take into consideration these concerns so they can implement them before they start breaking ground?
Yeah, so the intent is to share this information with them in the fall when we go back with our surveys, but we actually just heard from the crossing guard on Thursday about Shanks not being torn down next year and then being replaced. So we are working on that, but we will definitely make sure that this information is relayed to them so that, kind of like what we were talking about with Commissioner Richardson, that the new schools have everything that they need.
Yes. Thank you.
And also Commissioner Neesmith,
Yes.
with regards to that, as Lindsay said, we have stakeholder committees
Yes.
that are guiding this project. And for the Gadsden one, we have members of the Gadsden School District, so they are aware of this project.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to mention, for those that are not, city commissioners know, but those who aren't or haven't followed what we've done through the City of Tallahassee, we have approved an initiative to address speeding through school zones as well by including cameras in certain school zones. So that will slow down traffic, coupled with what we're doing here in terms of safe routes. Hopefully all of that combined will keep our kids safe in those school zones. I just want to introduce that as well, Madam Chair.
Going back to Commissioner Richardson's comments about, what's been observed at the NIMS Middle School, one of the things, as you recall, we sit on all 4 of the local community traffic safety teams, and all of those have, in the case of the Leon, we have TPD, the Sheriff's Department, and FHP. So some of these observations we'll pass on to them to possibly do some spot enforcement in some of those areas. And going back to the list here, more than likely, when we finish this project, we won't necessarily have a prioritized list of schools like 1 through 12, because depending on what the infrastructure needs are, we generally work with the local underground utilities or public works departments, and they more select the ones that they want to try to move forward any type of program, because they're the ones that are actually building the infrastructure and working all that. But we did this more so to identify the top schools and rely on the local governments to pick which ones that they want to ultimately implement.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No, ma'am, it's just enough. Ms. Lex will take care of this one.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief update on the public involvement plan. This has been a long time coming, Mr. Slay would say, so thank you. I chose this picture, by the way, to remind myself, as well as the people that we work with, our consultants and so forth, as we move forward in public engagement, mobile first needs to be one of the big considerations of all of our engagement material, because more people than not will access information on their phones. So we want to make sure that everybody has access to this information. So as we move forward, we will be looking to hone the strategic techniques and information that is user-friendly for mobile first. So this is required, the comment period for the public involvement update is a 45-day comment period required by federal code. The project was, the plan was posted on May 2nd. The committees were informed that it was out there for review. We got some feedback from them already, even though it was not a formal agenda item. They felt it was very user-friendly. Today, May 21st, we're here before the board looking for comment, any input, and whether you provide it now or any time down the line, please feel free. If you see something, you have a suggestion, forward it on, call me. We really want your input. The TAC will see it on June 4th, and it'll be back before the board on June 17th for adoption. Federal code, I'm not going to go through all of this, but federal code and state statute require that MPOs conduct public involvement. We have a public involvement plan, and in federal code, the two key points that come across are provide reasonable opportunity for public involvement and comment. What reasonable opportunity is not defined. In the public involvement plan, we have tied all of the public comment to regularly scheduled meetings. They can predict that at a meeting, they can come forward and make any comment, be involved in our process, be it a committee or a board meeting. And also then with the notice of the agenda items. So at a minimum, there's a 7-day notice on all of our agenda items. And actually, most times, 2 7-day notices, because it goes to the committees first. 2 weeks later, it comes to the board, or thereabouts. And the other key point in the federal code is non-discrimination, access to information, environmental justice. And now in 2021, with the executive order signed by President Biden, federal agencies are to review their policies and their implementations of their programs to identify inequities. As we see the emphasis with the Safe Streets for All, with the Safe Routes program, a big consideration was equity. The state has a requirement also that the MPOs have public participation requirements and plans. State statute also governs sunshine, and there is a discussion of government in the sunshine in the public involvement plan, and a brief summary of the requirements, including the fact that there are to be minutes and they're to be accessible to the public. Again, in the plan, the public can go there and they can see where to find the minutes from the meeting. If they don't want to call us, if they have a hard time, we've led them to that. And also, there's a requirement for public meetings at any school that you cannot have a public meeting while children are present. So we do hold public meetings at the schools, but it will be in the evening, and we'll make sure there are no students there. That's the Jessica Lumford Act. So on the major update, I revised to streamline the information, tried to put everything on one page. So if you want to know about the LRTP and how to participate, if you want to know about the board, you want to know about the committees, it's all there on one page for you to find out. I also added the information on the executive committee and the emergency meetings that can be conducted by the executive committee and the notice that's required for that. Details on the meeting schedules, times, and how to be involved, and the predictability of it. You won't have a meeting in July or August. There won't be a meeting in January, but there will be a retreat. That information is now spelled out for the public to know it's predictable. The framework I set up was for 4 major goals, and the first is to inform. It's our job to educate. To involve. We want you, once we inform you, we want you to be involved. We want you to ask questions. Come back and you know, what do you want to see from us? The next part is engagement. That's an ongoing discussion, dialogue. We want to keep people engaged. Once you're involved, we want to keep you there. We want you to continue to be engaged. And collaboration is a long-term effort to continue to build strategic relationships with our planning partners, with our public. The evaluation of the engagement strategies and techniques will be done annually, ongoing, of course, with every meeting. We do a look back and do a little summary, but annually we will do a look back. And we're also going to update our Title VI process and our forms that will come back to the board for approval next meeting, and it then become an appendix to the public involvement plan. Okay, let's try this again. Did I go too fast? There we go. Okay, so as I mentioned before, the goal is to inform accurate, timely information, involve and engage. So we want to give you opportunities, more of opportunities to be involved, and we want you to stay engaged through the process. And as I say, collaboration is a building with our transportation partners, providers, stakeholders. It's a continuous, comprehensive, coordinated exchange. It's ongoing. And then finally, the goal to evaluate what we're doing and how well we're doing it. The desired outcomes, I'm not going to read through these. These are also listed in the public involvement plan as guidelines. And these are 10 points set forth in federal law. And these are the outcomes that are to occur or anticipated to occur from your public involvement. One of those you will see, for example, is employing visualization techniques to describe LRTPs and TIP. I will say you don't see much visualization techniques in the public involvement plan in front of you. I'll tell you why in just a minute. But again, we are looking to electronically accessible information. We hold public meetings in places that are convenient. We have virtual meetings, we have on-site meetings. If somebody wants to meet with us, we say where and when. So again, we are very flexible and available to the public at any time. There is that emphasis, as I mentioned before, with public engagement and reasonable opportunity. There is an emphasis that on the development of the TIP and the LRTP. If there's any substantial changes from the first time it is reviewed to when it's actually finalized and approved, you will go back through a public engagement activity again. Even though it's always ongoing, there is an emphasis in federal code to make sure that you reach out to the public when you develop those two key planning documents. So for the next steps, after it's adopted, we will be sending this out to a consultant to reformat and add graphics because it needs some visualization in there. So thank you very much. We will be looking to add any additional information, strategies or tools, and any innovative techniques. We've been hearing from different providers of public engagement what they have to offer. We may be looking to use some other tools. But again, we're trying to make it a little bit more robust in terms of those activities. Additional material will be added most likely. Will be noticed again then in the fall as a minor update to the public involvement plan. We'll put it back out for comment for another 45 days. And then we will see the actual final document, graphics, techniques, visualizations, all of it in one. And with that, any questions?
Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Based on that timeline, what happens if it doesn't, if it's not adopted on June 17th?
It gets adopted in September.
Okay.
We could theoretically also have the executive committee look at it if we really wanted to put it in place sooner, because they meet usually in August. But most likely it would just come back in September.
Okay. And Madam Chair, the reason I asked that question is I don't know whether we have anything else to do at the next meeting other than that. So if that's the only thing that we have to do.
We'll have the TIP. That's the big one.
All right, never mind.
I'll be right here next meeting with you.
I was trying to start summer break.
Any other questions? Great,
Was that a
thank you.
question?
No, no,
Okay.
no.
All right. Anybody else?
Strike that.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Suzanne. Number 8, Bryant Polk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The department has one issue to bring to the board's attention. It relates to some recent changes to our strategic intermodal system in your area. If Director Slay was going to address that under his segment, I will not steal his thunder.
Go right ahead. I forgot to put the map in the agenda.
Well, without the map, I'll try to verbally explain what we were, or what Greg was able to do to have some additions in the CRTPA region. We were able to add a segment of US 27 from I-10 to the Georgia-Florida state line to the CIS. That was our first add. The second one was Capitol Circle, northeast and southeast. That carries you from Thomasville Road south and then southwest around to the Tallahassee Airport. This will be your new airport connector. Now, as this being your new airport connector, the segment of Capitol Circle going from the airport north back to I-10 has been removed. That segment has now, well, it's under construction, but is fully widened at this point. This allows us to focus on some additional areas. There are some concerns related to Crawfordville Highway. The department will commit to continuing to look for opportunities to look for funding to move that corridor forward. That concludes my very brief update on our recent changes in our strategic intermodal system. I'll be glad to answer any questions anyone may have.
Follow up on that. The other one that we had requested be included was Capitol Circle Northwest from US 27 down to I-10. While central office said at this point they did not want to include it, they said they would be up for reconsidering that in the future. And one of the things that we tried to tie it to was the Amazon facility that's still, I guess, on the books for that area that was not active. So if that project was to activate, we'd go back to the district and to central office and look to try to include that portion of Capitol Circle on the CIS, because as you recall, we've had this discussion, most all of the CIS facilities are getting the lion's share of the funding from DOT. You look through the district, you look throughout the state, most of the roadways like Orange Avenue, Crawfordville Road, the roads that aren't on the CIS are struggling to move forward. So with Capitol Circle Northwest, that's one that needs to be addressed. So where as quick as the Amazon project, or if and when it comes back online, we will definitely be back to the district and central office looking to get consideration for that one. Yes, ma'am. I meant to put it in the agenda
That's
packet.
okay.
We forgot about it.
It wasn't like any of us knew, did we, Bryant? We didn't know what your update was going to be. Is that it? Anybody have any questions?
One
Oh, yes,
question.
sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian, do you have an update on where we are with Orange Avenue widening from Adams west?
That continues to move forward in our design phase.
I noticed the survey markers. I didn't know if that was associated with the design phase.
Yes, sir. We're fully, we're funded, ready to take those plans to 60%.
Okay.
We'll likely put them on shelf at that point, only because, getting them 60 to 100% is fairly easy to do. So just as soon as we're able to allocate funds for right-of-way acquisition and construction, we'll definitely pick that project back up.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Is that
The traffic-
McDonald's to, is that
Yes.
McDonald's to, yeah.
Capitol Circle
Yeah.
Southwest. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because that traffic is, I don't know exactly where it's coming from, but that traffic is building in that segment of Orange Avenue. And that's the concern with that crosswalk at NIMS. That's why they have to have a staff person out there. Because people they just zoom right through that crosswalk, even when kids are using it. Because there's so much traffic. And then it almost doubles on FSU home game day. They route the traffic down Lake Bradford to Orange Avenue. Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify real quick, actually, the segment that's under Design Commissioner is from Monroe to Cypress Road. That's the one that
well,
Brian's referring
at
to. Yeah.
Liberty Park, yeah.
The design doesn't go all the way to Capitol Circle. It stops at Cypress Road, which is just west of where Lake Bradford comes in.
And to kind of round about to the point Greg made just a moment ago as related to funding, the segment in question currently has a $116 million price tag for right-of-way acquisition. That's a tremendous amount of money for the Panhandle, so we're looking at all opportunities to be able to move some of these corridors forward when we have instances like this throughout the district. We'll continue to push forward and be ready. That's why I said we could take the plans to a certain point, put them on the shelf, so that when and if funds are available, we're able to move forward quickly.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian, I see Autumn is in the room as well. You know, we, at Blueprint, we talk a lot about the airport gateway, in case you had time to watch. It takes a lot of time. Just wondering how, there's collaboration, I'm assuming, that's taking place in that area, because it's right there where Commissioner Richards was just talking about the widening of Orange Avenue and Spring Hill Road and on down that way. So there is some coordination. I'm looking at Autumn as well. You, DOT and Blueprint, y'all are coordinating the work to be done there. And are there any issues or concerns?
While I'm not personally involved in it, the district does meet with Blueprint on a regular basis to ensure that we're moving forward in the same direction on that and many of the other.
Okay, because as you were saying, you get the plans to a certain point and put them on the shelf until funding, and we just want to make sure that we're ready to go when it's time to go. Right, Autumn? Okay. I want to see a nod or a shake or something. Thank you. Okay, just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
The $116 million in right-of-way acquisition is from the first thing. That does not include anything that Commissioner was talking about with regard to Spring Hill Airport, all
That is correct, but
correct?
it was right away and construction
Okay.
for that total.
Right-of-way.
Yeah, I thought it was just right-of-way acquisition. Yeah.
If that was the case, well, yeah, we don't have enough time to discuss that today. You done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just a couple of things. We submitted the Safe Streets for All application from North Monroe last Wednesday. It went through. We got a successful submittal back on that. So Mr. Burke and Brian Powers from RSH, they really did a yeoman's job of putting that together. If you recall, we mentioned a few months ago, USDOT backed up the deadline on us 2 months. That kind of threw a wrench in the works. So they did a lot of work and got it put together. I think the final application came in, Greg. That includes the $4.2 million match from Blueprint. We're anticipating announcements on that in October. You may or may not be aware there's an election in November, so more than likely that, yeah, that's probably time to coincide with that. And just the only other thing I had, we're doing a helmet fitted training here in City Hall.
It's Renaissance.
Renaissance, sorry.
Yeah.
I want you to speak into the mic.
She is.
I just saw him come in and tell her.
I wanted to thank her for what we had a couple weeks ago. And the helmet fitting, that was a few months ago, right? And then a couple weeks ago, we had a turnout.
That was what.
Yeah, but it was But we couldn't have done it without the training that you provided earlier, right, at the community center. You're very welcome. You need to say that in the mic for her. Yes, sir.
That's all I have.
That's it? I thought you wanted to go to 10? You want to go to 10?
Not much in there, just next board meeting is June 17th.
You going to be able to make that one?
Unfortunately, Commissioner Williams-Cox, we will have to have that meeting, so.
Lawrence Williams Creek.
Yeah.
Any CRTPA committee action items?
No, ma'am, this is in your packet.
Yep. And any items from CRTPA board members they want to talk about? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Greg had mentioned, the Safe Streets for All of North Monroe application was submitted on May 15th. Just want to thank CRTPA staff, RSNH consultants who worked really hard on it, Blueprint for working with us on the 20% match, and of course FDOT. It is a state road, and so we're grateful for the partnership that we have with the Department of Transportation on this grant application. And also, the folks from Blueprint will know this, but just so you all know, at our last Blueprint meeting, we adopted, through our budget workshop, the plan for Blueprint to serve and provide the 20% match. So that has been approved by Blueprint and will be finalized when we finalize the budget later, but that's on track too. So big thanks to everybody. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, at our last county commission meeting, Commissioner Proctor, who is not on the board, had some concerns, was asking, inquiring, I believe it was, about progress and timing on Crawfordville Highway, I believe it was. His thought was there's an evacuation route, and so he was inquiring as to why it's not more of a priority for us. And so I did want to bring it up on his behalf in District 1 to get some answers as to when we'll start to see some movement.
Mr. Maddox actually was on the phone late Friday with Charles Wu from Public Works, kind of giving him an update, and I think he was sending some stuff on to Tim Morris to provide to the commission. But as it stands right now, DOT has tentatively funded about $6 million in fiscal years 26 and 27 for right-of-way acquisition. They're finishing up the design, so the next step after that would be construction funding. And we'll be talking a bit about this next month at our meeting as well. That's our annual priorities. I believe that one with Capitol Circle, the last portion of Capitol Circle Southwest being funded for construction from Spring Hill to Crawfordville, that will come off the list. And I believe the Leon section of Crawfordville Road will go up to the priority number 4.
Priority number 4.
Yes.
Madam Chair, if I might, is there anything, what are the 3 priorities prior to, and is there anything we can do at this board to kind of speed the process on it?
Commissioner, I think as Brian mentioned earlier, that's the struggle we're having with all these non-SIS roads. There's just not that much money available to move them forward. I've got a feeling when push comes to shove, if the right-of-way acquisition is done, we may see construction on that section because it's just comparatively, it's a much less of a construction cost, so the department might be able to slide that in at some point. I think the construction we'll have some updated costs next month as well.
Madam Chair, final question. How is it an evacuation route in the SIS road?
I'm sorry?
How is it that an evacuation route is not a SIS road?
That evacuation routes are not one of the SIS criteria.
Really?
I know one of the things, we've talked about this before, the evacuation plan that the ARPC did actually shows in terms of capacity for an evacuation, when you look at Wakulla and primary Franklin counties, there is enough capacity between Woodville Highway and Crawfordville Highway to be able to evacuate everyone. So while it is an evacuation route, capacity is not that much of a concern because you don't have huge population in Wakulla or Franklin.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Tell Commissioner Proctor if he wants to have a good time, come ride down Crawfordville Highway with me one day. And then we'll, okay, anybody else want to say anything? Motion to adjourn? Thank you, ma'am. See you June 17th.